We here at Untitled Film Project Podcast are members of the Music City Film Critics Association. And while we are not on strike with those that are part of SAG-AFTRA, we want to make sure we support the community that is on strike because we want to support creators and those that are putting in important work for this. Go to Entertainment Community Fund and you can make a donation today. You can support actors, you can support writers. There's so many people in this community that make things happen that you may not realize, but it's important work that they do. Entertainmentcommunity.org. Make a donation today.
And we'd like to mention that we are not influencers. We are not paid by movie companies. We are not working in cooperation with them. We are reviewers. So while we are reviewing movies, we are not crossing any lines. Welcome to the Untitled Film Project Podcast. Jeremy Gover, Justin Bradford, and myself, Jim Chandler. We're talking about Oppenheimer, the much-hyped documentary about the brilliant, arrogant, and sometimes naive physicist who led the Manhattan Project to build the very first atomic bomb that would change World War II and the world forever.
I don't know if we can be trusted with such a weapon. But we have no choice.
Let's get our initial takes on Oppenheimer. Let's start with Jeremy K. Gover.
So when you leave the movie theater and you're just in amazement, it says something about the film you just watched. When that's a good thing, okay? Like Tenet, for example, another Christopher Nolan movie. I went and saw it twice. I still have no idea what I watched. So I was amazed there, but
Same.
I don't. It's not the same, right?
Yeah.
I leave Oppenheimer and I'm just in shock and awe, not of the story necessarily, but just of the filmmaking, of the presentation, of the grandioseness of it all. It's, the word awesome is thrown around, it's way overused in our society,
Sure.
right? It's just part of the common vernacular, right? Well, it used to mean something big, like huge, larger than life. That's what Oppenheimer was for me. It was awesome.
Yeah. Justin Bradford, what did you get on your initial take?
Well, it was awesome.
Thank you.
Can we all agree?
He's already biting my stuff.
For me, Oppenheimer was a nonstop 3-hour masterpiece where my heart was pounding the entire time. And while it is very dialogue heavy in terms of the storytelling, it's the music from Ludwig Göransson adapting to what's on the screen that is just keeping the intensity rolling. Even in moments where there's interrogation or in moments of just straight up small dialogue, it's the music behind it that is a driving force for this film, that it blends so well together in terms of the storytelling that my adrenaline was pumping the entire time in terms of seeing this. The cast was incredible. A huge, tremendous cast. Amazing performances from Cillian Murphy, from Robert Downey Jr., from Emily Blunt, from so many people in this that I foresee multiple awards nominations coming from this film on acting, not just on the film itself from Christopher Nolan, but on the acting in general. Well, this is arguably Robert Downey Jr.'s best acting performance. Arguably. Not saying it is, but you could definitely make a case for being his best acting performance in this. And I loved it. I loved the storytelling of it. I loved it in IMAX. It was visually stunning in terms of the way you're throwing things in there and then also addressing the problems that it presented in terms of the actual real life problems that were presented in this and the thought processes behind what happened. What did we do? What did we set? Did we set the world on fire with this? So I appreciated the approach to it. I appreciated the film so much. And it is one of those things that you might only have to see it once for it to make its impact on you, because it definitely made its impact on me in IMAX.
For all the talk of the IMAX format and the dedication to practical filmmaking and what he puts into his craft, Christopher Nolan, I think this movie succeeds on the humanity of its characters. And the life of Oppenheimer and the people around him and the situation of the time is so complicated, both he and the world, that this movie was able to take that and make it so nuanced that it just, it was set off by the brilliant acting of, I would give an award already to Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr. and the director's ability to get that out of them, that for me, leading up to it, it was all about the filmmaking. When I was watching it, it was all about the story. And I was lost. My heart was also pounding from beginning to end. And that's because I think everybody in this movie did their job perfectly. And the score is in no small part play in the fact that this came off so well. We're talking about Oppenheimer. It's in films, finally. And before we get to anything about the way they made this movie, because that's what we've been talking about for so long, let's talk about some of the, let's say, performances. People that you saw in the movie that really made an impression and maybe couldn't have done, without them, this movie wouldn't have been as great. Who do you want to call out?
I mean, Cillian Murphy. He finally gets his opportunity to be the lead. You look at the opportunities he's had working with Christopher Nolan, where he is a supporting actor, even just a character actor in some of his pieces. But here, he is put at the forefront, and he just embraces the role of J. Robert Oppenheimer, I think, so well, to where people may confuse and think, is that really him? I think he embraces the role so well, he portrays it so well, and shoot, you would never think of what his true accent is when seeing the way he's able to pull this off, and what he does in so many films as well too. I think this is an opportunity for Cillian Murphy to really show how talented of a performer he is, and that's what's incredible to me is him. Robert Downey Jr. is the same way in terms of Louis Strauss, right? That's we really embrace the whole. It's not Strauss, it's Strauss, right?
Strauss.
His performance, when you look at side-by-side pictures as well, and the embodiment of it, and even just looking at maybe old film that might be available in terms of just body movements and everything, he embraces that role so well too. I think those are the two that stand out the most to me in terms of just outstanding performances. And Robert Downey Jr. showing, especially post-Marvel, he is an actor. He's not just Iron Man that some people became known for, or just Sherlock Holmes, which he was great in those roles. This is a true acting performance from Robert Downey Jr.
With meat. It's
So
meat
much
on the
meat.
bone.
Yes.
Yeah, and I also agree with Cillian Murphy. I think pulled off something magical in two ways. One, he had to display an intelligence and do it without words. I mean, like sometimes he did use it through dialogue, but I think his eyes and his facial the way his face moves, he definitely exuded this. There is so much going on in this head that you can't even fathom what's there. So I totally bought that he was one of the great minds, right? And then throughout the movie, with very little dialogue, but mostly with the expressions on his face, he was able to give us the quandaries, what have I done to this earth? Where do my passions lie? Where do they not lie? Within, like, I don't care about politics. I don't care about finance. I looked at communism, but then it was almost boring to him. He had higher things to think about, and Cillian Murphy was the one that I think was able to pull that off with just the most minute changes in the way he was looking at the camera. I was amazed.
And I think for that reason, if he's not nominated for Best Actor, he may not win.
He's going to be nominated.
No, but it's July.
He can be nominated.
There's a lot of stuff that comes out, especially home run hitters in November and December. So I'm just saying, like, if he's not at least nominated, it's a crime.
He's going to be nominated.
Because you're right, his facial, great acting is delivering great lines. Brilliant acting is acting around the lines. Mm-hmm. And he did every ounce of that for 3 effing hours.
The stage presence.
In Oppenheimer, yes. But not in a flamboyant way. No. In a subtle, angry, confused, turmoil.
Burning.
And all those things that aren't just like, like right now, like if you asked me to, like I could probably come up with something that's like angry. I could probably act angry, right? I can act like I'm happy. Those are like the main colors of the Crayola packet. Black, brown, green, blue, right? He's operating in fuchsia and mauve.
He's got
and
the
all
box of
kinds
64.
It's yeah.
I don't know. I was gonna say 144,
Yeah,
like the
it's,
big one.
It's insane. So, he was. Plenty of things were great. He was outstanding.
Yeah. And Robert Downey Jr., for a guy who has melted into our brain as Iron Man and maybe Sherlock Holmes, I lost the fact that I was watching Robert Downey Jr. and I was watching a character, and I was watching a historical character. He just did it so well, and he did it without trying. I honestly think he's that good, you know. It's not
Well,
like
he's got quite a resume though.
He does.
Everyone,
He does.
Bradford's right, and you allude to it. Iron Man is definitely top of mind for everybody. Okay,
Sure.
But he's got. If you look at his projects, his resume, it's especially pre-Marvel.
Yes.
It's
brilliant.
yeah. I mean, he's got some really great. Even if the movie wasn't great, he was good.
And you know who else stood out? And it took a second to click who it was, but Harry S. Truman, played by Gary Oldman.
Yes.
What?
I know. I had the same reaction when I left the theater.
Wait.
I looked up. I had to look up who played Harry Truman because I thought, wow, this guy was perfect. And he's not in the movie very long.
No.
But when I saw that it was Gary Oldman, my jaw dropped and hit the steering wheel because I was looking it up in the car outside of the movie theater, and I thought, how did he do that?
Gary Oldman is like the Vince Gill of acting. Never any controversy around him. Doesn't care about buzz or publicists. Just who cares about TMZ? I'm just going to go about my business and make a living, and be great at
And
it.
be the best.
And
Gary,
wear prosthetics.
and Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that's awesome.
Yeah. So speaking and going along with that, we knew this was a huge cast. We saw it just from the trailers.
Sure.
But there were still quote
there's
unquote
nuggets in there.
surprises.
Yep.
Yeah.
Of I won't even want to say cameos because there's too many big names in this for it to be a cameo. There were a piece of there were a cog in it, that they were an important piece, that there were still faces that surprised me that when they appeared on screen, like they're in it too. I mean, Casey Affleck, I didn't really
Didn't
know.
know it.
I mean, you have Academy
Yeah.
Award winner Casey Affleck involved in this, and plus so many others. I mean, Jack Quaid.
Right,
I mean, we saw Josh Peck in a trailer, but still, it's like seeing so many people from different backgrounds of acting as well come together. It shows how thoughtful they were in casting certain roles. That they weren't just going for huge names; they're going for different levels of Hollywood in this, and I truly appreciated that as well.
Yeah. It was. I mean, Matt Damon. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Matt Damon, who turns in a terrific performance 99% of the time. He is like so good. I think you can easily underrate him.
Easily, yeah.
You know.
I think so because I'm on my drive over here. I thought about because I was going through the list. I'm like, man, awesome. Okay, it wasn't that he did poorly.
He's Matt Damon.
He's Matt Damon.
We're
right.
taking it for granted.
So I'm like, okay, I believed he was a general, right? But it was still Matt Damon.
Right.
I'm not saying he was a
played
bad
the
actor.
part. He played
right,
the part.
he did. But there was nothing special about it. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So then one that had a good reaction in our theater was Rami Malek.
Yeah.
Yes.
He appeared. You saw people go, "What? You heard the voices of, he's in it too." Did not expect that. Like, there's so many things the trailer didn't show us of who's going to be in this movie, and I love that. I love the little surprises of seeing people in certain roles, but I was not lost in that. Like, they didn't distract from the film. It was just, for me, I was excited to see them be in the film.
Let me ask you about Amsterdam.
Okay.
Okay, Amsterdam's an ensemble cast. We all saw that together, right?
Yep.
How do we compare the ensemble cast in Amsterdam, where the project was kind of like, okay, but the performances were like Margot Robbie was tremendous, okay, Christian Bale tremendous, but this is different. The story is great. Would you put that ensemble cast? Would you put that when we have to vote for that for the Music City Film Critics Association Awards at the end of the year? Are you putting this movie? Are you putting Oppenheimer on the ensemble cast list?
Boy, that's a tough question.
That's why I'm asking.
I think right now I wouldn't necessarily,
Okay.
because of what other films may come out. Like, for instance, Asteroid City is more ensemble cast.
I agree with that.
Sure.
Compared to this one, because you had true leads and support, and not like full ensemble.
Right, but we
I
get
believe,
3
in this
votes,
one.
so
I know.
Right.
Like right now, I wouldn't, because I want to see what else is going to come out with an ensemble cast. Because
Yeah.
Asteroid City is definitely going to be
Haunted
in
Mansion might be up there.
there. Haunted Mansion could
Sure.
be, but Asteroid City I think is
just
the
think-
ensemble.
I agree with that.
In Oppenheimer, the tiers of acting input is different. Okay, because while you may have in Asteroid City, you've got this tier of actors, and then you've got a bunch of extras, right? So you have a great ensemble cast. In Oppenheimer, you do have like the absolute lead in Cillian Murphy's Oppenheimer, but then I think you hit every spectrum and level of how somebody can contribute to a movie.
I agree with that.
All the way down to, background characters. So there's no clear distinction between, maybe Robert Downey Jr. is definitely going to be a best supporting actor because he doesn't have as much screen time, but everybody contributed anywhere up and down that spectrum. So I don't think it fits the category of best ensemble.
Okay.
He explained what I couldn't.
Let's talk about one of the other things that Christopher Nolan is known for in his movies in various ways. Almost every single movie he makes is about time, in the flow of time. Obviously, Tenet is, Inception. There's so many. This movie, did a remarkable job of jumping back and forth from the formation of Robert Oppenheimer as a young man in his studies, both United States and in Germany, and then we're jumping ahead to hearings about Robert Downey Jr.'s Strauss character, to being named part of the cabinet, which is towards the end of Oppenheimer's story, then back to where they're interviewing Oppenheimer and questioning his, whether he's treasonous and whether he gave secrets to the enemy. There's no way I could have ever conceived someone could put that on screen, yet Christopher Nolan did it.
And how it starts where it started. Like in the movie, I almost thought it was a featurette.
Yeah.
When the movie started, I'm going, oh, no, they're jumping right into this. And it seems like you take the two ends of the sandwich and they're just coming together as the movie's progressing. Because you have the two ends of the spectrum and they're bookcasing it. And
right. And they're building to the boom.
Yes.
Which we all know the bomb and explosion is coming. And I think that works in its favor because all those things factor into how you view the bomb and the explosion that they were hoping to get. And to me, it was amazing.
And the artistic delivery and artistic choice of not showing the bomb.
Right.
Like only showing the test.
Actually, yeah, show the test, yes, but not show the... Like, everyone's like, oh, Hiroshima, right, Nagasaki, right? We're waiting for that. But they don't show that. They show the point of view of the town who's kind of sequestered.
Yep.
Waiting for the news. And they hear it on the radio. Like you would back in the day. So they deliver it to you that way. And then all of a sudden there's the aftermath of that, right? So
yes.
It was the artistic choice to not show a bomber flying over Japan, dropping the bomb, or the bomb hitting the actual land. Like, they didn't show any of that. And I thought that was so well done. I didn't want one way or the other. I trust Christopher Nolan's filmmaking so much that I'm like, whatever you want to give me is fine. But I left thinking that. I left thinking like, oh, they didn't show us that, and it worked.
Yeah, and I thought it was perfect for the time when we have an age now where we know things almost instantaneously all over the world. They had to wait days to find out if what they created in Los Alamos actually worked in the war on the two cities in Japan.
And going along with that scene where Oppenheimer is giving the speech to the town, that scene hit me so much because, speaking of time, of how quickly the remorse set in for Oppenheimer, because you have, well, first of all, in terms of the sound, we hear in the trailer the stomping sounds that's from that scene. We didn't know what that was from. It sounded like a train almost. Yeah. And then it's revealed that that's from that scene right there, which obviously plays through in his mind so much. And you even have face melting from the explosion. You have so many different people dying. You have death surrounding him immediately, and showing how quickly, from celebration to remorse, how quickly the time was involved there for his brain to just flip the switch. And
to go back and forth.
Yes.
And to go back, like yes, I have remorse in this moment, and in this other moment, complete defense of, I did the right thing.
Because you feel like he had to congratulate the town on the work they did.
Yeah.
He's the spokesperson. And yet he's saying these things like, bet the Japanese didn't, while also in his mind, oh my God, what have I done?
Yes.
Yeah. It also, along with time, the use of color and black and white.
Yes.
We talked about how they had to develop. They didn't have black and white IMAX film ever. It had to be created for this movie. And he used it perfectly. And I don't know if I agree with this. A lot of people have said, oh, if it's in black and white, it's kind of an objective history. And if it's in color, you're getting it from a character's perspective. Would you agree with that assessment of how color was used, or did you see it another way?
I haven't thought as deep for that yet. So for me, I would want to talk to Hoyt van Hoytema to see, because he's director of photography, right?
Yes.
Working with Christopher Nolan, as they've done on so many different projects. I think that's something where we want to dive deeper in, because I think there's that. It's a very interesting perspective. I haven't even thought of that yet, of what is taking place there too. Because there's still so much time now that people are going to have to start diving into this film. What's real? What's not? What's real? What's not? Even though overall, I think most people are looking at it as more of a documentary that's been dramatized instead of a dramatized documentary. If that makes any sense at all.
Oh yeah.
That's what I feel like. So I kind of trust that perspective a little bit more now that you mentioned that.
Yeah. There's something, and I will, for the YouTube version of this podcast, will include in the, more information drop down, a link to a video that was made probably 8-9 months ago.
It'll be right here.
Yeah. And that probably, 20-minute documentary was made before this film. So you're getting kind of a historical perspective. And I think you'll be amazed at how accurately, at how more of a, biography or documentary it is than it is a dramatization. So sure, it's a dramatization, but it's so based in what really happened from the stuff that I've been watching that I was just blown away.
Okay, so I did mention him, Hoyt van Hoytema. He's worked with Christopher Nolan on Dunkirk, Tenet, Interstellar, and plus other films like Nope, Ad Astra. So many different films. Obviously, an extremely, extremely talented person in the industry.
Some of the most beautiful films ever created.
Right. I mean, you just think about the work that he's done with Christopher Nolan, and then you add on all these other ones that have looked so beautiful and have been wonderfully done. I wanted to get your perspective in terms of, we're seeing so many things through Oppenheimer's mind, the flashing of molecules and things exploding, and how these are flashing images into us. And from that perspective, did that distract at all? I appreciate it because I think it's putting perspective into the film of what's actually being led up to in this. I just feel like it's beautifully done with the director of photography, especially in IMAX, and how they're utilizing the full screen to the effect of it's flashing in your mind to almost give you these images that are going to stick with you through the entire movie.
And they're all practical effects.
Yes.
Nothing is CG. Nothing in this movie is CG. Maybe the title credits. That's it. So I appreciated what he did to try to give us a peek inside, here's my reference, the beautiful mind of Oppenheimer, because it is very hard for somebody to visually display intelligence and what an incredible mind is that we don't have, right? Because all we can do is kind of be voyeurs into a genius's brain. And I thought he did it really, really well. And I needed that because I needed to see that there was nobody else that could have done this in this time frame.
Because usually, you give a really cool director, they have a cool idea, whatever it is, even if it's not really a good director, you see like a good idea, you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. Mm-hmm. But it's more cool than actually practical or like it didn't solve a problem.
Yeah.
In this case, it was cool and solved the problem. It gave the audience a glimpse into. It wasn't just like cool cutaway with the cool sound, because then it's astonishing. It actually was part of the puzzle, and I really respected that.
Now you've been waiting for it, Justin Bradford, so patiently, like a little kid who's waiting for the donut after church. Would you like to talk about the score?
It was good.
I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee downstairs. I'll be right back.
Ludwig Göransson. He really has been putting out huge bangers for that long.
Yeah.
When you look at his resume, it hasn't been that long, but he has quickly risen to prominence in terms of movie composer. And you look at the variety of things that he's done as well. It's not just movies. I mean, he's also composing pop hits, R&B hits as well. He worked with Rihanna for "Lift Me Up," which was in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Which he did the soundtrack for. Yeah.
Which he did that for. Also, Travis Scott, Alicia Keys. I mean, we're showing so much variety and depth of a musical composer here to be able to compose astonishing things like The Mandalorian. Yep. And his use of just different types of percussion instruments and flute and everything in that, to
Talked about Black Panther, yeah.
Black Panther, The Book of Boba Fett, Turning Red, so a Pixar film as well, Tenet, and now Oppenheimer. And this is one of those pieces that, with Oppenheimer, if you had a bad score for it, it would not have as much impact as a film.
That's true.
Truly believe that. They had to get it right, and Ludwig Göransson was the right one, because the way he composes is so unique that sometimes it's difficult to tell. I love John Williams. That is my favorite movie composer, my favorite composer. But you know when it's a John Williams piece, and that's totally fine for him to have his tell that it's a John Williams composed piece. But Ludwig Göransson, he shows so much variety in what he does in his work, you can't always tell. And to me, that's amazing, because he's not given telltale signs that it's his work. He is writing for what he is writing for.
Like Creed.
Yes.
How can the guy who created an amazing soundtrack for Creed score this movie about one of the most impactful moments in history?
And it's a driving force. The score for Oppenheimer is a driving force to this film, that it's what's helping make your adrenaline pump. Yes, on-screen performances, the dialogue, the topics that are being covered are very important, and you're going to be enthralled with that. But you add that layer of the score and what it is doing for this to help drive the message and to amp up, because we all know music is building your emotion for what's happening next. But just the sounds of the stomping feet, the little pieces of driving emotion through it, this score is absolutely phenomenal, and 100% can be nominated for me for best score of the year, no doubt in my mind, because this movie's not the same without Ludwig Göransson's score behind it.
Yeah, and I think, and to be able to keep that kind of relentless, hard in your throat feeling, even through a boring congressional hearing, which, I mean, like, it wasn't in the movie, but in real life, it would probably have been very boring, and it took like a month, right? You know, it was something that through the use of the score, they were able to bring that importance and the peril of what's going on, even in just people talking into a microphone that usually we would associate with C-SPAN.
Are you good, Gover? I know you're taking a nap.
I'm great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Right now, it's time for our final takes and scores for this film, Oppenheimer. And let's begin with Justin Bradford.
This is one of those films that, in order to fully appreciate what the creators have done, you need to see it in the way they intended it to be seen, and that's in IMAX. And I know it's difficult for everyone to see it in the full film IMAX, the 70 millimeter, which we saw, which is 600 pounds. and
11 miles long.
Yeah, 11 miles long. That is not available everywhere in the United States. So digital IMAX will be okay if you have to do that.
The biggest screen possible.
The biggest screen possible. And here's a caveat to that, though. Not Dolby, but IMAX. Because there's a difference in screen size.
Yes.
IMAX will expand and contract depending on the scene so much that it needs to be IMAX. You need to see it in IMAX. You have to see this film in IMAX. I cannot stress that enough.
Right.
That this is not one of those ones you're like, I'll wait for it to come out on streaming. This is a movie theater movie.
You must experience it in the way the creator intended.
Yeah. And at a time right now when you need to support creators in the way that they want it to be seen and not just streaming it. If you show proof that you support the work they do and the way they intended to be supported, which is by going to see it in IMAX, you're further proving the importance of this creation. And that's why it's so important to me that you see this. Now, it's going to have its time. Nothing is going to kick it out of IMAX, just like Mission Impossible was kicked out of IMAX very quickly.
By this film.
by this film, and Tom Cruise was not happy about that.
Yes, this movie is staying in IMAX theaters for months.
Yes, but it's not one of those things that you're going to notice in the moment, but afterwards you're going to notice, oh wow, the screen did expand a lot during that scene, or it contracted a little bit here, or expanded there, or my gosh, it was black and white, but still full IMAX 70mm. It's incredible to see in IMAX, and I say that I really love that we have the opportunity to see it in 70mm IMAX by hearing the projector rolling behind us and hearing the noise of the projector. Yes. It takes you into the moment. And that's what this movie is so good at, is bringing you into a moment to feel like you're in the room as this is happening, because it's so huge and it's an IMAX and you're seeing so many close-up visuals of things that are going on, that Christopher Nolan and team did a fantastic job of bringing you into the room where it happens. And you feel it because it's shaking your seat.
Yep.
You're feeling everything. It's so quiet. It's almost like ASMR at times, because you have hundreds of people in a theater collectively knowing, oh, I should be quiet and really listen to the dialogue of what's happening right now. They did an incredible job, incredible cast, incredible performances. The score was incredible. There's not much that I can find wrong with this film. It was a little long, but I understand why it was long. I didn't feel that. 9.5.
All right. Jeremy K. Gopher.
Okay.
Give us a lead up to your score on Oppenheimer.
If you do not like exposition in your films, you are going to hate this movie. Because
hopefully they know that going in.
I know
the kind of film this is.
I know, but the first two acts are basically entirely exposition. So enjoy that. I really like that. I liked the way they did it. Now, I'm not a fan of exposition. Right, we talked about it in Shazam 2 and all these other, it's just okay.
Shazam 2 reference in Oppenheimer.
Well,
wow.
I'm using polar opposites
here,
right?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So you have, all of a sudden, there's a 7-minute scene in the dungeon with the Harry Potter pin, and they're explaining what they're going to do. That's not what this is. But the point is that it's still the first two acts, honestly, probably first, 2 hours of the film, 2:10 at least, is essentially nonstop talking. And every word matters to what is happening, playing out. Right? So, if you don't like exposition, you're going to hate this movie. So, Bradford's right. It did feel long to me. There were times where it was 3 hours, but sometimes you can go to a 2 hour, 45-minute film or 2 hour and a half, and it's over. And you're like, whoa, wait, what? Like, I can't believe I spent that much time in there. This was not that. This felt the 3 hours long to me, which is a problem, kind of, not really, because it was so great. Right, again, when I left the theater, I was so impressed, so awestruck by what I had seen, what I had felt. There's A+ performances, acting everywhere. There's an A+ directing performance. There's cinematography that was A+. Everything, the score was an A+. I mean, there was so much great about it, but the first two acts were a lot of exposition, which I don't have a problem with. I'm just warning somebody. It felt long, which is half a point off for me, because it shouldn't. And for me, the two other things I wanted to bring up that we didn't get to in the regular take was, I thought the nudity was unnecessary. As a person, I enjoyed said nudity. As a professional, which always believes in fundamental tighten up as much as you can. Nothing unnecessary. It's all got to matter. I didn't think it was necessary. I didn't think it was needed for Florence Pugh to be naked. I didn't think they could have done could have had the exact impact to me. They could have had the exact same impact on me if she was clothed, even in the sex scenes or even in the whatever, like when they're having the affair. That was all necessary. The scenes themselves were necessary. How they presented it seemed gratuitous to me, and I didn't. That's which is weird, but it's neither here nor there. Now people don't care about that, but there are some that will. So I took a little bit of points off for that because I didn't think it was necessary.
Points.
Well, half a point, really. So, and then the last thing, and this is probably the most important thing out of all this, actually, was the score was too loud for me. The mix was not right. So this is a movie where every piece of dialogue matters. And it's quick thoughts. It's Cillian Murphy saying one line almost like a question, and then somebody answering him right away. And the score got in the way a lot for me. I don't know if I have sensory issue. I don't know what the problem is, but for me, I battled throughout the movie, actively sometimes, with trying to figure out what is he saying? What's the dialogue being said? All I can hear is the music. And it was a problem. So for those reasons, as great as it was, and as much as I left the theater being like, I'm just amazed. I give it a 9.
Oh, okay.
I want to give it higher because that's how it made me feel. When I left the theater, I texted a buddy of mine and I was like, it gets an A. And he knows I never give out A's, ever. And so and he's like, whoa. And I was like, yeah. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, the dialogue was a problem. It wouldn't be a problem if it was a comedy or if it was something that didn't really matter.
You had me worried.
Every dialogue matters. And that was it.
I thought we were going to get like a 7.5
No,
out of
no,
him.
no,
I was going to throw hands.
No. I'm willing to say that
I would have come at you like a tornado of arms and teeth.
No. I'm willing to say that at the end of the year... Oh, I'm sorry. I'm willing to say that right now, as of the time we're recording this, this is the best picture of the year, period. Spider-Verse, you can give me an argument on because of the visualness of it, but the story itself was it was good, but it wasn't like this is incredible, and so for that reasons, I give it a 9.
This is Jim, and I think sometimes you know it when you're there, sometimes you don't. When you see something special that you're not going to see very many times in your life, and I'm willing to call this Christopher Nolan's magnum opus. It's a true masterpiece. I think he took one of the most important stories in human history and with such skill and such beauty conveyed the complexity. I was left speechless, and almost everybody in the theater wasn't speechless when they got out. But you'll see, if you haven't seen the movie already, and you don't mind spoilers because you're listening to this podcast or watching, that people will quietly be having discussions about everything that they saw. And that is very rare. It's a near perfect movie, and I don't even know if a perfect movie exists. Okay? So addressing a couple of things that you mentioned, Jeremy, about the sound mix. I'm going to give the sound mix 99% out of 100 because there was only maybe 2 lines where I said, what? Wait, what was that? But I think this was one of the most difficult movies to mix because of the volume of not only the score, but also some of the sound effects, the stomping, the explosion, the way that was handled was incredible. It was the quiet that they brought before the noise came was so powerful. So I really thought the sound mix was phenomenal. I agree. Maybe it wasn't necessary to see Florence Pugh as naked as often as we did, even though it's just a small part of the movie.
Sure.
But I'm okay with that. I don't think it detracted from it for me. And, if I was going to take every little thing that I found wrong, which was so hard to find, and subtract it, I would have to give this movie a 9.5, but I can't because this is one of those special movies that doesn't come along. I was thinking, okay, when 2001 A Space Odyssey, which many people, including Tom Hanks, I just saw in an interview, called like the greatest movie of all time, that he watches 4 times a year. It is also one of those movies for me. It is so special, leaves people talking, and like Inception, people were still arguing about the top at the end of that movie and how incredible it was. This is so much better that this is the first time in this short podcast history of about a year plus that I'm giving a movie a perfect 10.
Wow!
It's time for the Untitled Film Project Podcast's Big Question. And of course, we'd love to hear your answers. We'll give you ours first. Tell us how we're wrong or how unbelievably smart we are. The best score of a Christopher Nolan movie. What is that for you, Jeremy Gover?
Prestige. No, just kidding. The answer is...
The movie everybody forgets that he did.
I know. The only answer, I think... there's a lot of great... Okay, obviously, I'm not discounting any other ones. But my favorite, far and away, therefore the only correct answer, is Inception. Because it changed trailers forever. that alone changed movies forever after that. After that, that's all you heard is some sort of...
You're right. It became an era for trailers.
And if you go on like pond5.com, for all you marketers out there, if you go on pond5.com or you're trying to get some sort of music, like kind of licensed music for your project, if you look under cinematic or whatever the category is, you're going to get a lot of things that are very similar to wah. You're going to get a lot. It's all going to be like a distant cousin of that. So my answer is Inception, because it's a great score, but also because of its cultural impact on movies.
That's great. I like that. Hans Zimmer.
Yeah,
he's
he's great. I am also going to go Hans Zimmer with Christopher Nolan's Interstellar. That movie's, oh my God, it so haunts me in the best way. And I can prove it in that if you looked at my YouTube history, which, okay, don't look at all of it, but if you looked at it over the course of the last, say, 5 years, or ever since the movie came out, you're going to find at least once a month, I will stop and watch an entire section or entire YouTube video of somebody who's sat down in a rail station in the middle of, let's just say, Switzerland, and there's a piano, and they're going to be playing that beautiful piano piece, and everybody in that rail station is going to stop and gather around that either street musician or somebody who's just so talented and saw a piano and sat down and started playing it, and that's what they chose to play. And it pulls everybody around. And there's nothing like that. If you can sit at a piano in a place where people are trying to get somewhere else and they're moving and they don't want to stop for anything, and you have a score like Interstellar that can stop people in their tracks and say, no, I need to stay right here and listen to that. That's how I feel about Interstellar. So that's my answer.
All right, well, this is Justin, and there are so many good ones to choose from. You have the whole Dark Knight series.
Yeah.
Sure.
That are fantastic.
Goes without saying. Yeah.
Goes without saying. I mean, Christopher Nolan has associated himself with great scores with his films because you can tell he appreciates how important music is in telling the story. I mean, Batman obviously has its themes, but those are great scores that show darkness in the Dark Knight series. And then you obviously have Interstellar, Oppenheimer now. Dunkirk was actually a really phenomenal score as well. Inception, the great pieces in there. You have Dream is Collapsing and Time are the two most popular pieces from that score in Inception, and it is great. But I'm going with Interstellar for mine because day one, the piece you were describing, Jim, is the one where dun, 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 and then goes flowing piano piece. Yes. And it's just beautiful. And you hear the notes in Interstellar flashes right into the movie for me. And then Cornfield Chase is another big one. I mean, you have some major pieces from Interstellar that when I hear them, I can just listen to them because it's driving music and it visualizes for me the film. I can see the film when I hear those pieces, just like so many John Williams pieces do for me in a lot of his films. Like Hans Zimmer is a genius as well. I mean, he has scored some great Christopher Nolan films. Interstellar for me, my love for space, my love for travel, my love for all of that is the one for me that stands out the most. I love Inception. It is like a 1A, 1B for me. Sure. But the 1A is Interstellar.
And with Interstellar soundtrack, there's a sentimentality and a romance that and there is no love interest in that film, right? But it's that beautiful love between his daughter and Matthew McConaughey's character that just plays out in the music so well. So
it's not heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking too.
Yes, it'll tear you apart. If you do not cry at that music, you are a robot. You're ChatGPT. Oh, God. So you've been listening to the Untitled Film Project Podcast. We've been talking about Oppenheimer, the Christopher Nolan film that has just hit theaters. And we'd love to get your takes on it. And was there a flaw that stuck out? Because we had trouble finding them. Was there something about the movie that we did not mention? And I don't think we gave enough attention to Florence Pugh and Emily Blunt. But then again, we have left out about 500 things that could have been mentioned in this movie. Please call us out on it.
So just go over to UntitledFilmProjectPod.com. Go has some incredible written reviews on there. All of our podcasts. Yes.
My heart flutters.
And then also on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Threads. You can find us on there as well, too.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Untitled Film Project Podcast, our first inside the brand new UFPP studios.
Thank you for listening to the Untitled Film Project Podcast. To support the show, please rate, review, follow, and subscribe. Original music by Jeremy Schwartz. Special thanks to the Music City Film Critics Association. Editing and post-production by Jeremy K. Gover. Voiceover by Chad Bennett.